I just got in the house and my laptop is dead, and so I was running around trying to plug it up. And so I'm on my phone. Is audio? This is audio. I know you said video. You prefer video?
So it's going to do a combination of both. So what happens is the way the system works is it's going to record both audio and video separately. And so I typically upload the audio and then upload the video. It's okay. Content is content, so it doesn't have to be perfect.
Okay.
But if you want to charge your laptop or whatever you want to do, just let me know.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. I mean, it's charging right now. Give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna get in on my laptop.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I never said nothing about it. You felt like they were being sarcastic. Yeah, just my employees. That's my business. You know, your metrics and what you gauge as an achievement is actually like a PR or an underworld's way of looking at it because, you can't cash that out.
actually looks a lot better. That looks really good. I'm not sure if you can hear me though.
Okay, I'm here. Sorry about
I
that.
can hear you. Cool. That does look better. No worries.
I'm usually very prompt.
What time is it there? Are you on Central Time or Eastern Time?
Central.
So it's like 9 there?
Yeah, I just got in from a property inspection.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Yep, it's 9 o'clock.
Is it still daylight out there around this time?
No. Daylight wraps about 7:30.
Okay. So the inspection was done during the daytime?
Yeah, it was a 3-unit, so it took a while.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. We started at 6, and our inspection should take about 2 hours. So wrapped up about 8, and I was on the other side of town. So.
The other side of town. Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna kick it off. I'm going to kick it off, and we'll get it going. Do you know Ponji Barnes?
Nope.
You don't know Ponji Barnes? You don't know Ponji Barnes?
Mm-mm. I can't. I don't know everybody like you. I mean, you know.
I guess
You know everybody.
Well, I just figured she's in Chicago.
What does she do?
She does what you do, like exactly this. Well, I don't really know.
What's her
Real estate-
Instagram handle?
Real estate and chill.
Oh yeah, so you got to say people's Instagram.
Right. We're
in the social media world, right? That's what we live in. So yes, I know.
Okay.
I know her. We've commented on a few of each
So I
other.
figured.
We just hadn't connected like that yet, but we know of each other. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Okay.
Yeah, she was on your podcast.
And she was. Yeah. She
Cool.
was really good show, and she's just a really cool person.
Yeah. So, so how long are your episodes usually, or how long do you like for them to be?
Usually about an hour.
Okay.
We can do an hour, 45 minutes.
Okay.
45 minutes to an hour.
Oh, okay. Instead of an hour and 45 minutes, I was like, okay, I guess we're going to spend a lot of time getting to know each other.
All right, cool. So, kick it off. This is the Ty Capital Millionaire Podcast. This is episode 100. We made it to 100. Never thought we'd see the day, but we did. So, thank you guys all for tuning in. A lot of you guys have actually listened to all 99 and now 100 episodes. So that's really cool. I appreciate that. Lives are being changed from a microphone and a computer. So, very cool stuff. For those who know, my name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Ty Millionaire, founder and the director of the Ty Capital Investment Club, also the founder of Ty Acquisitions. Make sure you leave a rating or review, subscribe, like, and share the podcast to get the word out. Also, check out the store on Gumroad, which is gumroad.com/Ty Capital. Thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American business owners and investors, mostly because I wanted people to see the examples of successful people doing what people say you can't do, because that means that there are no limits, there are no boundaries. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is Rashauna Scott. She was the founder of Flippin' in Heels. She's the co-founder of MDLU. She was featured on Blavity and Rolling Out. And she's a really cool person doing some really cool things in Chicago real estate investing. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored to be show 100.
Right.
Man, your first triple digit show. It's a big deal.
That is.
So kudos to you to just everything that you're doing, in the community. I love that you started the show in the series to, like you said, highlight other stories that most of us didn't grow up hearing. And I think it's important to highlight it, not only the successes, but the failures also. I got a few of those. but I mean, I think it's great. So thank you so much for having me.
Cool. So can you give us some more information about your background and who you are? For
sure. Like many people, I didn't grow up, with the silver spoon. I actually am one of 7. I'm the youngest girl. Growing up, it was like 6 of us before my little brother came along. It was 6 of us in a 3-bedroom home. It was actually a 2-bedroom townhome. And then they turned the dining room into a bedroom for my older three sisters. Later on down the line, you know, I just thought that's how it was, right? Not realizing that, oh, like, no, we were actually we weren't wealthy, you know, we didn't have a lot of money, you know, my parents did the best that they could. The great thing about me, I think being the youngest of 6 at the time, was that I had a lot of influence from my older siblings, and which made me very responsible at a young age. I questioned everything. A lot of people said that, you know, I have this outgoing personality. However, I have an old soul. I've been told that from jump, you know, that I came into this world grown. And fast forward a little bit, I was in high school, and there was a career day. And I remember like it was yesterday. There was a guy, and he worked for AT&T, and he said, even though I'm a manager at AT&T, I do not allow for AT&T to provide for me and my family. He owned 400 vending machines across the city of Chicago, and he explained the concept of filling and a Black guy, I might add. But he was a manager, and he explained, you know, how much it costs to fill it up and how much he makes when it's empty. And he talked about the maintenance, how the maintenance is really low. And I mean, he just shared that. And that was my first real interaction with being that up close and personal with the idea of financial freedom, right? Before then, I had never even heard of financial freedom or financial literacy, like a lot of these terms I wasn't familiar with. So like I said, I was like 16, 17. And then I said, you know what, well, you know, I'm turning 17, 18 soon. I know at 18 I can start getting credit cards in my names and things like that. And everybody tells you, oh, credit is bad. You know, when you go away to school, you know, they're going to try to get you to sign up for all these credit cards. I turned in and asked my mom, I said, hey, well, I'm about to turn 18 and I want to start building good credit. I knew that in order to be successful, I had to figure out how money worked. And that's all I knew, right? So I didn't know how I was going to get to this financial place of freedom, but I knew I at least need to figure out money. And so I asked my mom, well, how do I build good credit? And she said, I don't know. So then I had to figure it out. I had to, you know, go to free conferences, free workshops, free seminars, show up. I mean, I worked through school. I put myself through school because I also knew I didn't want a lot of debt. So I didn't want any debt. So I paid my way through school completely. I didn't have any student loan debt. But I also worked part-time and I worked my butt off. And sometimes I was even working 2 jobs just to pay for school. And, you know, all the while, you know, trying to figure out what it was I wanted to do in order to be successful. Somebody gave me my very first job. I was working at a health food store, again, where I have an interaction with a lot of older people. There was a guy who brought me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He saw something in me and he said, you know what, I'm going to bring you the book that I share with all of my tenants. So he brought me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read that. And again, I didn't know how I was going to be successful, but then the book kind of confirmed that real estate was going to be the way. And I also had a mentor at the time, and my mentor was great in getting me started, but I learned quickly that mentors can really only take you to where they currently are, not even where they've gone, because my mentor was very successful back in the day before the crash, but he was in a position where he was trying to rebuild. So he helped lay a lot of the groundwork and the foundation. And again, learning the acronyms like OPM and ARV and, you know, getting and understanding the difference between a realtor and an investor. So he helped me lay the foundation for that. But then I went ahead and I said, you know what? I started my first business when I was 19, incorporated, built business credit, built up a $20,000 line of business credit, but then didn't know what to do with it, you know, because I had the guidance, right? But it was like when I got there, I was like, I'm ready. Now what? So built that up and ended up not doing anything with that business. So then I had a friend who was a very successful real estate broker. So I got my license and I started doing leasing when I was 21. So that was in 2013 and found out quickly that's not what I wanted to do. I wasn't making any money. I was working hard, I was working full-time in school full-time and doing real estate on the side, and I wasn't making enough money. Then I spent a lot of money in investing, a real estate investing education program. Spent like $15,000. I was able to get a 0% interest line of credit to invest and learn about investing. My very first deal was in 2015. Someone allowed me the opportunity to be a part of their deal, to be a private investor. And then today, I've gone through a few business partnerships that have failed, but I've learned a lot. And I am blessed to be in the position that I am now, to, you know, and to today, you know, now I still raise private capital. And I think that's probably because that was my very first way of getting started. And it's actually become my niche. And then also being a realtor, being able to help people. Clearly, I've attracted other people who want to invest. So that's where hashtag the investors realtor came from. And so I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be able to do that as well, to help other people start their wealth building journey, especially since house hacking is the new thing. So I know I said a mouthful there, but that's, you know, that's where I am now. And I'm 27. So like I said, I got started early, a lot of trial and error along the way, and still figuring out, you know, I'm not there yet, you know, but I'm definitely getting there. Yeah.
One of the best things that you said, and I want people to really get this, is the guy said that he worked for AT&T, but what did he say? He said something about.
He specifically said, I do not depend on AT&T to take care of me and my family.
Right. And I think that's so key. It's key for two reasons. Because he went out and he created financial freedom, but he didn't stop working. And so like a lot of times people think you have to do both. You have to either be financially free and retired where you're not working, or you have to be struggling and working a job. And so with no assets. And I think it's so dope. And that's one thing that I've realized is like, I'm okay with working. I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. They said, do you want to practice law or do you want to be a business owner? I said, I want to do both. And I think I can do both. And I think that I should do both. Like I should be able to have an enterprise that sustains me financially and sustains my family and still practice law. It's just, I've been in situations where you give your job 100% control over your life where they fire you and now you're homeless. Right. And so I've kind of been in the back of my mind building a hedge of investments and a hedge of different businesses and a hedge of different like sources of income. So that now like you can like me, you don't like me, but I'm still going to be okay. Like it's great that you do like me, but I'm still going to be okay. So I think that was so dope to hear like an older person say that. I know there's a lot of value in like people who are older than you. What's also interesting is my mom was also the last born, and she also kind of is the person with her head on the most straight. I guess she's been able to kind of learn from her older siblings' successes and failures. And so like it all kind of falls on you. And so you get to kind of start with a good footing.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when I was younger, people would always ask me like, so is there another entrepreneur in your family? Like, where did you get this from? Where are you from? And and I think, you know, it came from being the last one in the bunch, so to really see how, you know, my family was struggling, like even to send, you know, my sisters away to school or like there were certain things that, you know, I thought was normal, but as I got older, it was like, oh, it's because we couldn't afford this or that or whatever case. Or even seeing my mom and my dad like put things in my siblings' name, right? Like bills and things like that, and not realizing, oh, it's because you messed up, you know, your credit, or you messed this up, or you know, you're not able to do that. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. You know, I remember being, I don't even know how old I was, but I was younger. And I think it was when my older brother was going away to college. And you know, you need a major credit card now to rent cars, right? And everybody's looking at me for like a credit card. But I'm like the youngest one. I'm like, come on now, guys, we got to get together. Now, thankfully, people, you know, I've rubbed off, you know, on a lot of members in my family. But seriously, I mean, there's still a generation of people who only do business like at the currency exchange, you know, like, yeah. And for me, so I'm very, real estate is really my passion, but I started out, I guess, on this journey being all around financial literacy, right? Because I was self-taught, and then it was very important for me to educate those around me. So I can talk about budgeting. I can definitely talk about credit and credit repair and all of that, right? Because I think it all goes hand in hand, right? In order to be successful, you have to make good, sound financial decisions, and that's all across the board. So, you know, I definitely, I'm sure I rubbed off a lot of that, you know, onto my family members.
Which I think that's really dope, though. And I think it should be motivation for people to develop themselves, is you have the ability to impact your friends and family. So you impact them not in just like, hey, here's some money. You impact them by being somebody who has their head on straight and their stuff together within their circle. Because then, you know, like you become
the youngest one.
What?
And being the youngest one, you know, not just in the circle, but it's like, oh, this the baby. Like, oh, we gonna let her pass us up? Like,
right.
Yeah. Well, you know, y'all can get it together. Y'all can jump on this bandwagon with me, or, you know, get left behind.
Right.
You know, because the days of the I didn't know are in the past.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's one of the things that's so cool about social media is the fact that it's media and people can consume it. And a lot of times people are controlled by what they consume. And so it's like, if you just see a bunch of really dope people talking about what they're investing in or whatever they're doing that's more progressive, it becomes your subconscious thoughts as well. And so I think that like that's one of the great things about like what we have now, and if people take advantage of it, we can actually change the culture. I think that media changes the culture.
Absolutely. And shout out to Blacker Pockets, right? Who has highlighted more and more Black real estate investors, and the shift has already started. And I am so grateful to be a part of it. I mean, literally, this is going down in history. You know, believe it or not, like what we're doing, we're creating conferences. We're at the forefront. We are opening up our mouths and saying, you know, we are here and this is what we do. And everybody has a specific niche about them, like their own lane. Even if this person is a wholesale expert, they also have 100 and something rental property. I mean, it is so beautiful to see. And I mean, you said it, like, thank God for social media. And I made a post, I mean, you know, when it's used for good, right? But I made a post and it was really heartfelt. A couple weeks ago, I said, Black real estate investors do exist. And I really meant that, because when I got started, like I said, that $15,000 that I spent in real estate investment education, that didn't go to a Black company, right? I wasn't around people. I wasn't seeing that. I was not seeing it. So to see that, like the people of this generation right now that are able to look at us and see it, like they're like, man, it's the gift. And we're giving out so much free information.
Right.
You know? So I'm grateful. I mean, you know, we're obviously doing it for the culture, and the culture needs it. So, you know, it's a great thing that they're paying attention. The majority of my clients are millennials, and I'm excited to be a part of their wealth building journeys. So many of them are like, well, yeah, this is my first property, but you know, this is what I'm starting out with. And, you know, I'm going to house hack and live in one unit and rent the other units out. And then I'll only stay here for a year, and then I'm getting another building, you know, like that's the conversation that I'm having with people today.
I like it.
Yeah.
So how did you get started in real estate? We know about the courses. What did your first deal look like?
So my very first deal was in 2015. There was a girl, her name was Leslie. I met her at the investment group, I guess you can say, that I was a part of. And she told me about a deal that she was doing, and it was in Bronzeville. Bronzeville at the time was going through a major change. The projects were in Bronzeville. They were torn down, a lot of vacant lots, new construction homes were being built. So, you know, you get you get what was going on. And Bronzeville is a neighborhood right next to Hyde Park, where President Obama is from. And so yeah, Brownsville was just hot, and it was a condo that she was going in and renovating. She was flipping, and she said, "Hey, you know, I'm allowing private investors the opportunity to get involved in this deal, and the minimum investment was like $5,000." Well, me being a broke college student, eager to get into real estate, I said, "Well, look, I only got $2,500, but I want to get started. Can I please be involved in this deal?" She said yes. Again, I'm working part-time. I'm not, was I working full-time? I don't remember if it was part-time or full-time, but either way, it still wasn't a lot of money. I didn't have any degree. I was working through school, right? And so that's, you know, all I had in my savings. I said, can I please get involved in this deal? A year later, I was able to earn my 15% return, which was a couple $100, but it felt so liberating to, you know, write a check. I didn't have to do anything. Everything went great. A year later, I got my money back plus a return. So that was a great feeling. But also, she even said things like, you know, you were way more involved than my $35,000 investors, right? My passive investors. And that's because, again, I had that drive and that passion to learn. And I'm showing up to the project. And she actually learned a lot too, because it was her first condo flip. So dealing with the association and going through, you know, what are they responsible for? Like, was behind the walls, in front of the walls. Like, I remember there was a plumbing leak, and I'm showing up and I'm asking just as many questions as she is. And she said, you know, you were the most, she said you were the most involved. And that's what I say to people today. You know, if you want to get started investing in real estate, you have to bring something to the table. You got to put some skin in the game. And that's why I allow people the opportunity to be involved. And you can ask as many questions as you want to, because you are the investor, right? You are invested in the project. And again, even though my little $2,500 probably, it just paid for the trim and a couple of doors, but you know, I showed up, and I was so grateful to be a part of that experience. And not even like, and now that I do more and more of these podcasts and I tell the story, I'm like, in hindsight, that must be why I go so hard in private investment, because that was my first deal. And I remember how it worked out, and how, again, it allowed me to show up and be a part of something bigger, something greater, right? I couldn't take on a $100,000 project by myself, you know, at 21, 22. I didn't know anything, but I was able to be a part of it. So that was my first deal.
I like that story. And I've seen you mention that concept of when you become an investor in somebody else's deal, then you get access. You get the access that you were probably looking for in a mentor. And so I think we should call that mentor hacking, because you effectively.
I know that's right. Because everybody wants a mentor for free, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so, and I can kind of speak to that too, because I've been on the other side. I've been the guy who was having people invest in my deals. And so I'm doing the conference calls. I'm answering questions at all hours of the night. I'm sending pictures. I'm letting them know what's going on. So they're getting an education just by contributing whatever they contribute towards the deal. When you said that, it was something that made sense. And I was like, she's right. Like, that's 100% true, because I've lived it, but it's also something that that I kind of just knew. Like, I knew they were getting an education. I knew they were going to have the skills to go on and do what they wanted to do on their own. And then I read that in a book. I'm reading this book called Empire of Their Own, which is about how the Jews invented Hollywood. And he was saying, like, the people who helped him build his first theaters went on to build their own enterprises. They started their own businesses. They did their own investing. And so it's like a quid pro quo. Anytime you do anything, I think within the culture, it's a quid pro quo. This podcast is a quid pro quo. I'm going to learn from this conversation that I'm having with you. They're going to learn from listening. And you're also going to get exposure. You're going to get more clients. So it's like, anytime that we help each other, we all win. Anytime we hold each other back, we're actually, like, it's that quote that says, like, if somebody's pulling you down, they're already down. So it's like, I think if we just shift that mindset and say, I'm going to help you win, you're going to win too. It's quid pro quo. So I love that. And I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you know, people are able to learn in the process. And like you said, you're on the conference calls, no matter what time it is. You're sending pictures, you're sending updates, because you want to keep your investors happy. You want your investors to keep coming back. So you are serving them. You know, you're doing what you need to do, and it's up to them to take that information, onto their first deal or their first project or whatever the case, or just keep coming back and investing until you have everything you need. You know, it's an even exchange of information, but I really think the investor is the one who benefits more.
Why do you say that? Why do you think that?
Well, I mean, here I am today.
You're right. I think you're absolutely right.
Right.
The ROI,
you know?
the ROI on your 2,500 wasn't the money.
No, definitely not.
It's all the money that you made since then.
Yeah, right. Everything that I've done since then, and now today I'm raising hundreds of thousands on my deals, but I'm able to explain how it makes sense from that situation because I was in their seats. And they understand and they get it. You know, if you want to get started, then you have to put some skin in the game, right?
Absolutely.
And that is a great way for you to get started. Show up. I mean, I do investor tours, I do investor walkthroughs, I do updates before I purchase a property. If they live here, we're gonna go see it. You know, before closing. You know, we're gonna talk about everything. I'm transparent about everything. You know, people ask me, how do I raise private money? I'm transparent about everything. I answer all the questions. I don't have anything to hide, you know? And so, yeah, I think the investor definitely benefits when they benefit when they show up.
Right.
Yeah.
So whenever people think about Chicago, we only know what we know on the news, on Fox News, CNN, all that stuff. They say, oh, this many people were killed over the weekend in Chicago. Yet, you are in Chicago and you're doing pretty well for yourself. How have you been able to successfully invest in Chicago, safely invest in Chicago?
That's a good question. So the media is the media, and you said, you know, you mentioned it when we first got started that the media influences. Right? It can change the culture. It can change anything, right? That's what the media does. And what they fail to share with people is that the murder rate is actually less than what it was 20 years ago, almost half, right? So why we have to ask ourselves, why all of a sudden? And for me, you can call it what you want, but I think it was an attack on our president at the time, being from Chicago, being from the south side of Chicago, trying to attack him at every angle in which they could. And, you know, if we can't find this angle, well, let's talk about where he's from. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about things that he can't change, right? Also, I mean, there's a lot of so media and influencing, right? So if people aren't investing, or if people are moving away, right, then obviously there's more opportunity. People are selling, properties are low, but they're building a complete new zip code in Chicago. Like they're adding a whole other zip code in Chicago. There are 77 zip codes in Chicago. They're adding, it's called the 78. It's going to be 60678. And it's a brand new, you know, multi-billion-dollar development. So if Chicago is so bad, why are we still building, right? It's also, you know, as far as corporate, we have a lot of corporation headquarters here, a lot. I mean, people don't know, like there's a Facebook here, there's a Google here, there's a BT here, there is a Boeing here. Like there's a lot of great things that Chicago has to offer. So when you talk about the murder rate and things like that, like I don't buy it. I never bought into it because I'm here and I see it, right? Now, for one, yes, bad happens everywhere. I don't go into areas where I know I shouldn't be, period. So I think that's just that. In regards to investing, it's the same thing. You know, you invest in areas where it makes sense, you know, obviously where you can afford, but also where it makes sense. So if properties are selling at this price point, but you know, you're able to find some deals, you are able to invest it where it makes sense. I will say that the other thing that I tell people, that I say Chicago is block by block. So that means, you know, on one block, it can be a good block. On another block, it can be a bad block. So I think it's just a matter of knowing your area, knowing your surroundings, and again, knowing what makes sense, period. I don't see, you know, what other people say. I actually used to do a lot of live streaming on Periscope. And people would jump in the room and they'd say, "Hey, oh, what's up, Chirac?" And I'm like, "No, we don't go by that. You know, we don't call it that here. Like we're not doing that." But you know, I'm from Chicago, born and raised on the South Side. Yes, there are a lot of terrible things that happen, but I don't involve myself in that. You know, I try my best to stay out of harm's way, but things can happen anywhere.
I think that I'll never forget when maybe like 4 or 5 years ago in the paper, all you would ever hear about is shootings in Inglewood. There's this mass shooting. There's just like death. It was a gang war going on in Inglewood. And now all the property in Inglewood has just been bought up, being redeveloped. They're putting a stadium out there and nobody can afford to live in Inglewood anymore. And as you were talking about that, yeah, I'm listening.
You know what? Right. Inglewood there's a brand new Starbucks, there's a brand new Whole Foods. They've redone, there's a college that sits on 63rd and Hofstad, Kennedy King College. They renovated the college some years ago. I have a friend who actually works for the city and does a lot of like sewer work and construction and things like that. And anytime that the city is going to do any type of redeveloping or building, they repair the lowest utility first. So you talking about your gas lines, your water, you know, things like that. And these areas he was working in like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, right? And we talk about it, you know, as real estate investors, we talk about like looking at the city buying plans and things like that. Like there's a plan for everything. As well as I was just sharing this, I believe that Chicago is in a 100-year business cycle. So in regards to real estate. So when you think about the business cycle, right? I mean, it was like a terminology in college. So I just remember it was like a graph, right? Like that. You know, you have the recession, the trough, the rise, all of that. And, you know, I'm looking at certain areas, like I mentioned earlier, you know, Bronzeville, or you mentioned Inglewood. And there's so many different neighborhoods that were once creme de la creme, right? Even downtown was not what it is today. But the areas have fallen, you know, values, everything. People have moved out to the suburbs and the city got rough. And then once the city was so bad, now it's time to tear everything down and start rebuilding again. And now prices are going back up. Prices are going back up and taxes are going back up. And I believe that is the real estate cycle, especially here in Chicago. That's what I've seen. Now, there's some communities that have maintained, you know, and they've been stable throughout, like Hyde Park would be one of them, because it's like you're downtown on the south side. So it's literally, you know, you don't have the congestion of downtown and you don't have the price points of downtown, but you still have that feel. So that's one of the neighborhoods that's maintained its charm. I mean, mansions and, you know, everything all through Hyde Park. But there are certain areas that I believe, you know, are doing this kind of up and down dance over, you know, a 80 to 100-year cycle.
Nice. So you talk about raising money. Can you talk about how are you doing Reg D, Reg A? Are you going like just strictly accredited investors? How does that look? And if you can talk about it.
Yeah, I can talk about it. So look, I'm like, you're a lawyer, right? I don't want to get in any trouble, but no, I mean, it's mainly unaccredited investors. So I don't have like a PPM set up or anything like that. I've thought about doing something bigger down the line, but it's really just been deal by deal and having promissory notes in place. My focus has been individuals who look like me and you, and people who they have like a 401k or a retirement account or something like that, but they're looking to earn a little bit more. the majority of my folks who are investors, they want to get started in real estate, but they don't know where to start. And they might have 50 or 80 or $30,000 just laying around, right? Those are the majority of the people that I have conversations with and who come out to the property. So my partner and I, we actually will have property tours where we invite people out to see what we're doing. You know, it's a free event that's for the community, for people to see what's going on, how we found the property. You know, there are different community organizations, city organizations that we buy properties through, so we don't have to compete on the MLS. You know, we have hard money lenders coming out. We're sharing our resources, and people are showing up and saying, like, this is pretty cool. You know, I think I want to get involved. So the majority of my investors are just regular people who work jobs, who, you know, they know a thing or two about budgeting, and they're ready to do something different with their money. And they're excited, again, to be a part of something bigger, right? The next property tour, they're bringing their friends and family, and they're saying, look what I'm involved in, right? And getting them.
Brag about that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did. Like, my whole family was there for my $2,500. I mean, they had a presentation, like a little open house or whatever, and I told everybody to come. Everybody, you know, and right, people brag, but it's a great statement to make in the community, as far as getting not only them involved, but the people around them as well.
Right, and it's another instance of something for something, quid pro quo. I think that what was I going to say? I was going to say something along the lines of like, what was it? There's 2 points I was going to make. I forgot what I was going to say. One of them was that, so I'm not sure if I mentioned this yet, but I'm reading this really cool book called Empire of Their Own. This is why books are so amazing. And so you have these guys who, what they were doing is they took like stage plays, which were only accessible to the wealthy, and they brought them to the masses because they could record them and then sell, and then give you access for like 5 cents. And in a lot of ways, what we're doing in working with unaccredited investors or working with your everyday person is that concept. There's so many people who want to get involved in real estate. And there's, honestly, I think there's probably more of them than there are accredited investors. There's more unaccredited people than there are accredited people. Like,
yeah,
numbers just show that. And it's kind of like a huge opportunity. And a lot of people I don't think we really realize how much opportunity there is, because it's like the Walmart concept. You make more money being affordable than you make being Nordstrom. And so once we get it like clicking, because that's my biggest problem. My biggest problem is like, how do I get it like clicking? Because everybody knows all the reasons why you can't do it. Everybody already knows like the reasons why, like, oh, you have to do this, and that's going to cost you $15,000 just to draw the docs up. And so like once we get across that threshold, like the floodgates open, because I have so many people that want to invest with this. It's just like getting over that bridge. So we'll have that conversation after this call. I have some questions for you. I'll PayPal you. The other question, the other comment, and it's still not coming back to me. So I'll think about it as we go later into the conversation. But so we talked about the structure. How are you finding deals in Chicago right now?
So there is a phenomenal resource called the Cook County Land Bank, where the land bank, they are I guess you can call it I guess you can say they're a community organization. But they're kind of government, because they're not just like a not-for-profit, like they got pull, right? But they are able to acquire properties that have problems. So they've been foreclosed on, they've gone to the auction, nobody has bought them, they have liens, judgments, back taxes. They're able to acquire properties and clear them of all of their debt. Mm-hmm. And then they put it back out to the public to sell. So there are certain properties that are for homeowners only, Like if it's the property that is in a really good condition, then, because the sole purpose is to revitalize communities, right?
Right.
And in some instances, you have some properties that aren't messed up properties. It was just unfortunate situations, right? So like foreclosure and things like that. So some properties that they put back out are for homeowner purchases only. But then there are some, if they have problems with them, now it's available to everybody, essentially, you know, investors. And so that's been a great resource. We actually acquired 2 this year through the Cook County Land Bank, which has been a phenomenal organization in regards to obtaining the property. And it is a great resource. It's like people sleeping on the land bank, literally. And I know like there are a few other major cities who have land banks. So that's one way. I have another deal that we're closing on in a couple of weeks, and it actually came through Instagram. Wow. Yeah, I put it out there that I need more deals. Send me more deals, because right now I actually have more investors than I have deals. I have a waiting list, which is a blessing. But yeah, somebody slid in my DMs and was like, I got this deal, and that deal is actually a really great deal. Like 85% of the work is done. We pulled all the permits, you know, to make sure. We had our attorney do a FOIA request for just all the work that was done. And it's a really good rehab. Literally, we were going to go in there and just finish it. And so resources, networking, right? People ask that all the time. How do I find good deals? You got to show up. You got to go places, you know. And on the realtor side of the business, we call it, you know, you're a real estate agent, but don't be a secret agent, right? You it's funny how many people that I come across who like, oh yeah, I got my license too. Really? I would have never known that, right? But because we're quietly doing what we're trying to do, and for whatever reason, I don't know why we're quiet about it, you know, it would kill me for somebody that I know them and they know me, and I have a conversation with them and they say, oh, I just bought a house. And, you know, I'm going to say, well, why didn't you call me? And if they say, I didn't know you was a realtor, that's a problem for me, right? Like everybody needs to know what I do, what I'm about, you know, like that. And I guess you can call that brand awareness, right? Putting yourself out there and saying, this is who I am and this is what I'm here to do. So getting in touch with resources, like I said, going to networking events, getting on wholesalers lists, right? I'm on so many wholesalers lists. They send me deals. So, but those were the 3 properties that were acquired recently. So one was through Instagram, 2 through the Cook County Land Bank, and then another one, another recent acquisition is just through some wholesaling that my partner does. So many different ways. So yeah, if the numbers make sense, then let's do it.
So since you bring that up, how do you know if the numbers make sense for new investors?
So for new investors, I call it the 3-on-3-on-3 rule. And I literally just made this up like last week, but I'm like, I like that. I'm stick with it. So I tell people in regards to running comps, right? Finding properties that are comparable to yours. I start with, I say, you know, 3-on-3-on-3. So 3 properties that have sold within a 3-block radius within the last 3 months. If you don't see anything, it's okay to expand your search from there. So that's how you find, and at my property tours, I say, you know, ARV, what's ARV? And everybody has to say it all at once, right? After repair value. Because this is what we're talking about, running numbers. So yeah, I start with the 3. I tell people start with the 3-on-3. So again, that's 3 properties that sold, that are currently for sale, but that have sold that are similar to yours within a 3-block radius within the past 3 months. If you don't say anything, you can go out 6 months, go out 9 months, you know, no more than a year, no more than a 1-mile radius out. The closer to the property, the better. So that's why I say start there. And, you know, there's so many different sites where you can expound, you know, you can change your search from there. So that's an easy way, you know, to find an ARV if you don't have a realtor for you to run comps. In regards to estimating repair costs, because I think that is the number one thing for investors. I remember I struggled with that. Like, how do I estimate repair costs? And to be honest, as a new investor, you don't, right? That's what you have your GCs for. That's what you have other people for. You don't have to scratch your head and get stuck by not knowing everything, because you won't know everything. I still don't know everything. And I'm okay with that. You know, that's why I have a GC who can tell the plumber, like, no, that needs to be a 2-inch pipe instead of a 4-inch pipe. Like, I wouldn't know that. And I'm okay with not knowing that. But, you know, for your properties, absolutely. I'm working with some new investors. We're going out to a property tomorrow, and they have 3 general contractors that are meeting us there. So that's the, you know, that's probably not what people were looking to hear. I mean, there's so many books and resources out there about estimating, you know, renovation costs. But when you're just getting started, don't have analysis paralysis, where you feel like you have to know the bottom line number to everything, because one thing can change, it can blow the entire budget, and then you feel like you failed. Like, you don't have to know everything up front.
Right.
So.
And what's interesting is, like Brandon Turner says, is like real estate is forgiving. So say you do a deal and you do go over budget, in like a year and a half, 2 years, everything will be gravy. The appreciation will maybe caught up to you, or the cash flow will maybe have caught up to you. So like, even in real estate, you can misfire and still turn out all right, depending on how you structure the deal, as long as you're not over leveraged.
Yes. So I have 30% margins at least. If it doesn't make me at least 30%, and so that's 30% of the all-in cost, then it doesn't make sense. So, or I'm not doing a deal unless there is a $50,000 profit. So it's either 30% margin, or if it's less than 30, it has to be at least $50,000 profit. So for easy numbers, let me see if I can. I don't know. Are you a numbers guy?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So let's say if I have a property where the ARV is $200,000, then, well, no, that might not be a good. Well, I guess so. $200,000. So I need to be all in for no more than 140. So that's 70% of, you know, and that's everything. I mean, that's holding costs, closing, that's everything. We have a spreadsheet that just pops those numbers out. So yeah, that's my margin. You know, not everybody's the same. I was listening to some investors down in Kentucky, and I think they're making like on average $25,000, $30,000 a deal. And that may make sense for their market. But for me, there's so much that can go wrong. There's so much gray area. So yeah, if a property is at an ARV of 200,000, then I can't be no more than 140 or 150, right? Because between 140 and 200, you have 60 grand. But if we're at 150, we can make it work, because there's a $50,000 spread.
Yeah, you're very sharp.
Years of mistakes and trying to figure it out.
You definitely do have a demeanor older than 27.
Years of trying to figure it out, and being in some crazy situations and some messed up partnerships where, you know, that has forced me to, I guess you can say, level up. And even in my relationships, my partnerships, and my conversations, and what I demand, you know, when working with people.
I think that's good, though. I think the pressure kind of pushes you into becoming a better business person.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know what you're not gonna put up with anymore.
Which is really important.
you know, and it's like, man, did I have to go through that? But yeah, you kind of did, because I was a softie, right? I was just taking whatever I could get, because I was vulnerable. I was eager. I was just ready to get in the game by any means necessary. I mean, I put in a lot of money. I mean, the $2,500 was the start, but I put in a lot of money. I lost money, right? So, like my business partner today, we had a conversation for 6 months before we signed any paperwork. We talked about the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups, the downs. We talked about what happens when we talked about it. So I think it's about having those conversations up front. And if I had not gone through what I went through with other business partners, then I wouldn't have known to have those conversations. So, yeah.
It's a marathon. And I feel like you really do have to commit to the process of running that marathon. And what's really cool is that you're going to level up throughout that marathon. So you're going to gain new levels of strength. And so like a lot of people are like, I'm trying to do this deal and be rich in 6 months. I'm trying to do this deal and be rich in 12 months. And like, you might not get rich in 6 months, 12 months, but you might hit some milestones. You might do some good deals in 6 months. So if you just focus on the process and make some money in the process while you learn and you go through things in the process, like the long-term goal is going to take care of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people all the time, I preach on partnerships because, again, my very first deal, somebody allowed me the opportunity to get in, for one. For two, I don't know everything. So I don't wear the GC hat, and I don't need to, right? I actually made it a point to partner with a general contractor. So the quality of the product has to be there before he can get paid. So I don't have to worry about the work not being right? I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about it. And I tell people, if you're able to be in an operative, do what I'm doing. Do exactly what I did. Follow the blueprint, right? Because it makes sense. Like, when people are invested in certain things, it turns out 10 times better. And everybody has to have some skin in the game, right? Because if you think about, you're hiring, and that's kind of another thing, when you talk about partnerships and who to partner with. But when everybody has skin in the game, like I said, it just turns out a lot better.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
So before I kind of transition into some of the closing questions, there's some social media posts that you posted that I has to ask you about. One, I wasn't expecting this. And I mean, there's nothing too crazy. Well, the first one, before I even get to those, is you made the comment, or on one of your posts, you said something about you don't have to be a licensed realtor to be a real estate investor, which I find interesting because you are a licensed realtor. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, for sure. So as I mentioned, I first got my license in 2013 because I just wanted to get into real estate. I didn't know how to get started. So I was like, oh, well, at least this to get my foot in the door. I was only doing leasing. In Illinois, they have a leasing license, you have a broker's license, and you have a managing broker's license. So I was only working with landlords and tenants. I was like, this sucks. I'm not making any money. I did it for a year. And I was like, I'm not doing this. Then that's when I got more involved in investing. Loved investing. Investing was my passion, or still is my passion, but I wasn't making the strides that I wanted to make in investing. Again, lost money, made some bad partnerships, some bad relationships. And while I was building back up the investing side, I was like, well, I might as well go back and get my license, because the consumer doesn't know the difference between a realtor and an investor. So I was getting, people just knew I did real estate, and I was getting inquiries from people all the time that was looking for realtors. And I was, sending them out, and I wasn't making any referral fees or anything like that. Legally, I can't. So I was just like, I don't do that, but this person does. And so at first, it was just like, oh, it was just another means to make money. I understand real estate. I know the real estate language. It was just something that I was like, oh, well, this is something that I can do for my friends and family. Little did I know it was going to blow up the way it did, because, again, brand awareness. People already knew me for real estate. So the second I posted, I passed my test, I had my first client. And I was just like, oh, well, I was like, it'll allow me access to the MLS. But that was it. I was never like, oh, I want to be the top realtor. That was never in my mind. It was just like, oh, this will make me a little extra money, and I have access to the MLS. And what I've created, again, and who I've attracted, I didn't know that that's what was going to happen, but now I'm attracting a lot of people who are connected to my purpose, which is helping more people, young people, millennials, Black people, whoever, like people. I mean, I have clients that aren't Black. I love them the same, right? But the fact is investing in generational wealth and doing something different than what we were brought up to do. And so, like I said, you know, the majority of my clients now are doing the whole house hack thing and all of that stuff. But I put it out there because a lot of my inbox messages are, hey, Reshawna, I want to get started. I'm currently taking my real estate classes. I'm about to take my test and blah, 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 you know, and I think people are confused, right? And they have this misconception that you have to be a realtor in order to be an investor. And that's absolutely not true. You know, you can flip your own home, you know, renovate it, put it on the market, sell it, it sells, bam, you are an investor. You didn't need a license to do it. You didn't need a realtor to do it, you know, and so I really just wanted to bring that to the forefront because, again, a lot of people are in my inbox saying that. And even after that post, people were like, thank you so much. I was just about to sign up for real estate school. And, but yeah, you know, it's a misconception. So that's why I put it out there. I wasn't saying don't do it. You can do whatever you want to do, but don't think that one will help you do the other.
I think that's a great answer. It's a great answer because you're saying that a real estate license is valuable, but don't let the real estate license prevent you from getting started. Absolutely. Like, get started. But if you want to add the real estate license, it is going to help you. And I think that's interesting because I literally just talked to somebody and he's a wholesaler, but he also has his real estate license, which some people say can be a conflict. But what's interesting is he was talking about pulling comps and you're talking about pulling comps. And a lot of people who are looking to value a property, they're kind of basing their value on like Zillow or Redfin or those sites out there. Whereas you have the ability to literally run legit comps and not have to like worry about asking somebody to run your comps for you. I feel like you can't be a boss and be dependent upon somebody else. Dame Dash will not approve. So are you a Dame Dash fan?
You know what? Yeah, well, you know what? Not so much, but some of your videos, like they're funny, right?
Did you watch
I only understand boss talk. Yeah, you posted it like 5 times. How can I not see it? Like,
yeah.
But I prepare my clients, right? Because running comps for realtors, that takes time. So like you said, you know, you don't really want to have to ask because most of them, there's some realtors who charge for comps and there's some who just like, I don't have time to do it, or I don't have time to keep doing it on every property that you're analyzing. So for me, it's usually when we're like about to submit an offer, you know, that I'm going to actually put together a comp report for a client. Every deal we go see or every property you analyze, I'm not going to put together a comp report. You know, what you can run on your own should be good enough. But I think also when you think about comps, you also have to keep in mind that comps change. You know, what the values are today may not be the same in 6 months. So, you know, if your numbers are tight here, very tight here, it may take you 6 months to renovate that project. You know, the market could fall, the market could go up. So again, I think that's why having your margins in place and, you know, all those things are very key when you're talking about investing, right? The other thing too that I just want to add is you also need to figure out what type of investor you're going to be. If I literally need to have that saved on like a sticky note where I copy and paste in every DM that I get. Because everybody's like, I want to be a real estate investor, but I don't know where to start. So my very first question is, so what type of investing do you want to do? Or they say, you know, do you have any advice for me? I want to get started. And then I say, well, how do you want to get started? Well, I don't know. I just want to get started. That's not an answer. You know, I need you to figure out, do you want to be a landlord? Do you want to flip houses? Do you want to wholesale? Do you want to be a private investor? Do you want to go to auctions? Do you want, you know, do your research on that and then take a deep dive into that specific thing. You know, there's so much out here. And I went through this at first. I had trouble figuring out what it was I wanted to do. It was like squirrel. It was like so many different things about investing. But when I got specific, that's when I got better.
Right. So how many doors do you have now? Because I don't want to like not ask this question. Sometimes
No.
I regret that.
No, you know, so that's the plan. That actually is the plan. Right now, I'm flipping to get 2 doors. So a mentor of mine, who's no longer a mentor because he owes me some money. But yeah, it gets real. He owned like several hundred doors, and he told me that apartment buildings are the only thing that's recession proof. And he did teach me many lessons, right? But that was one of the lessons that stuck with me, that apartment buildings are recession proof, because in a recession, the price of a 2-bedroom is either going to stay the same or it's going to go up. And looking at even Chicago, like, and even some of the worst areas, a renovated 2 or 3 bedroom is going for what they're going for all over the city. Unless you're in very, very, like luxury markets. But for the majority of places, a 2-bedroom apartment, if it's renovated, it's definitely gone up. So for me, flipping right now is the avenue to get to that. So I don't want to flip forever, right? But I have a niche in private investing, and I may even do something down the line where I bring on private investors. So I keep what I'm doing with my niche, but do it more so long-term into long-term holds. I haven't decided yet, and we can talk about that offline. But yeah, so flips, that's the name of the game right now. And it works, right? Like I also understand that it won't be a flip market forever. I understand that. So while flipping is good, I'm gonna flip as many properties as I can.
Right. You had a post that said, "I would rather invest in a failed entrepreneur than one who assumes success from day one." What does that mean?
So, a lot of the posts that I post are speaking directly to myself, right? So it's something that
I did the same thing.
Yeah. So it's something that I've gone through, something that I've experienced, something that I needed to hear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that post was talking to my experience. At 22, I really can't even remember how old I was. $15,000 is a lot of money. Like if I would have told, I don't even think I shared it with like anybody in my family. Like I invested $15,000. First of all, they're gonna say, where you get $15,000 from? Like where does somebody that's working a part-time job and going to school and stuff, where do you get that from, right? But I took that risk and I invested in myself. Then, I learned a lot. And then I had some successes, but then I had some failures. But I continued to invest in myself. Like going and getting my license, that's an investment. That's another thing, that I made mention to on my post. It costs money to be a realtor. So if you got to pay MLS fees, you got to pay, you got to take the state test. Like that's a couple $1,000s investment up front before you close any deals, right? So again, not giving up through the failures, because at this point, a year and a half ago now, I've gone through some failures, right? But I'm still pressing forward because I know real estate is my passion. That's where I really want to be and what I really want to do. So continuing to invest in myself. So that post was speaking to me from 2 previous experiences, and then sharing that with the world. Like show up and invest in yourself. It's so invaluable, and I don't want to sound cliche, right? With you investing in yourself is something that anyone else can take away from you, but you have to show up. You got to show up, right? So many times we're sitting back on the sideline. I think I also said, you can't, you're never going to be a player. You're never going to get in the game sitting on the sidelines, right? So sometimes getting in the game does mean putting your best foot forward and putting some skin in the game, investing in yourself. Yeah. So sometimes it's more than just showing up. It's what are you going to do when you get there?
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Dame Dash doesn't believe in the word failure. And I don't think that you had failures, but I would like to hear I want to hear about those stories, because I feel like there's some value. There has to be some value there. I feel like those experiences make you greater. And I also feel like as a culture, we have to kind of get away from that idea of success and failure as well, because I think that idea that it is a failure keeps people on the sidelines. And so it's like, it's not even really a failure as much as it is like, that just didn't work out the way we planned on it. So let's go to the next opportunity. What's the next opportunity now? Like,
yeah.
So,
yeah, you're right. It didn't work out. So, let's see, which one? So, one situation that didn't work out, I pretty much built a business for someone else from start. And I was in a manipulative situation. I had just lost my old job, and, real estate, again, just trying to figure this thing out in real estate. And someone had an opportunity for me to help start a business. And I did it, right? I got a bunch of investors involved. I did what I do best. And it was really embedded in my mind, like, oh, this is our company, your company, partners, right? That word was used a lot. And when I finally realized kind of what was going on, I was like, and I was making my exit, investors was like, well, how you going to leave? This is like your company. You're the face of the company. I said, yeah, that's the problem, because I'm not being compensated as a partner, as it's my company. And so I do remember that when I was going through like a lot of my different real estate classes, people would say like, oh, make sure you have an attorney, with these partnerships and blah, blah, blah. And people tell you, be careful when you're getting into partnerships, but they don't tell you exactly what type of specific traits that you should look out for. So for me, it was people who didn't reciprocate the same energy as far as having your best interest and an equal interest at heart. And I say that to say, I was in a position where I didn't have a lot of money, and I was like, hey, let's do our contract. Let's get everything, I'm repeating what I learned or what I heard. And the response was, well, yeah, go ahead, get your attorney, draw it up, I'll sign it. It was very nonchalant. Whereas, fast forward with partnerships today, it's like, I don't even have to ask, like the paperwork is there. Right. But in the past, just being sort of passive with it and letting things fly instead of being firm on, no, this is exactly how this is going to happen. You have to have that confidence when you're handling your business, and people who don't respect that will take advantage of you. And that was also when I realized that I didn't know my own worth. And I don't even mean to sound cliche, but it was legit. Like a friend of mine had to tell me, I was like, well, this person does this and this and this. And my friend was like, hold on, you raising thousands of dollars, like, don't sleep on that. Like, people trust you with their hard-earned money and stuff. I was like, you know what, you're right. But, so definitely, when you are bringing something to the table, don't think of it as any less. And nobody should make you feel like that's any less, because if it was, they wouldn't be sitting there having a conversation with you, right? They wouldn't want to do business with you if they didn't see value in you. So, believing in yourself, that you already have everything you need in order to succeed, and that you really don't need anybody else. But yeah, definitely looking out for, like I said, people who are very passive aggressive about working with you, but not really wanting to legitimize everything. Or, like I said, using the words partner a lot or team a lot. But when you look at the fine print, it's not a partner structure. So that was definitely one of the, I guess, lessons. We're not going to call it the F word, right? That was one of the lessons that I learned that, again, helped me level up, because in my next conversations, I'm outlining this, and this, because I know what didn't work out. So I know what will work out next time.
Right. And you're still like, you're so young. like Gary Vee says, he's like, I think Gary Vee's like in his 40s. He's like, you don't even realize how young you're going to feel in your 40s. He's like, you could literally mess up everything until you turn like 35 and still be young. So I think that there's people who probably wish they had that experience, because that experience is going to make you that much more money in the future. On the last show, I just talked to this guy, and he had a deal where he let like a 3% interest differential between what the lender wanted to pay, what the lender wanted and what he wanted to pay, ruin an entire deal. But over the course of the entire, like, his career, he's more than made that money back. So
Right.
I'm very optimistic. I don't believe in failure. And I think that just the concept, Dame Dash, he says stuff and we're just like, Dame Dash, you're crazy. But like, we can't lock ourselves into that, because there's literally people who are not even getting lessons because they're afraid of the pain. So
Right about
can we
that.
talk about number 2? Can we talk? Or, also, you definitely preached a sermon right there.
So, look, I'm like number 2. So there's actually, so what I gave you was number 2. That was number 2. I skipped number 1. And then there's a third, situation. In the first situation, I think I know, because that was my first big investment, financially. Again, being younger and having money that I put aside or saved or whatever, having that money to invest. And again, it went back to confidence, right? Confidence as well as contracts. So my next post is going to be confidence and contracts, right? Confidence in contracts, but even a step further than the contracts, the recourse, right? Because I think that, yes, you can have in your contract, okay, what if this doesn't happen? But are you ready to financially take on that, to go to court, to go through litigations and sue somebody for all of that? So that's actually number 1. My number 1 is that I invested a lot of money with someone who did not really do anything that they said they were going to do. And so, yeah, that's number 1. Number 3 is I invested with some. Oh, well, you know what? Actually, to back up a little bit, because I was in a position where I started raising money early on. Because again, I think it was from my very first experience of being a private investor. So I had the ability to raise money early on, and because people were coming to me and saying, I want to do what you're doing. So I was actually, but I didn't have any deals going on. I was still learning, but I was attracting people who had $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. And I was actually giving them away. Like, you probably wish you knew me then, right? Because I would have been like, yo, I got some investors, and I was the plug, I was the connect, and I might have made like a little, I guess you can call it finder's fee or whatever. But again, going back to knowing who you are, understanding who you are, and knowing what you bring to the table, and not giving that away, because that's what I was doing, right? I had investors that were coming to me, but because I didn't have the experience, well, for one, I didn't want to mess it up, right? I didn't want to take somebody's money and mess it up. But again, giving those investors away, I was also giving up control and putting somebody else in a power of position to be in control over somebody's finances who trusted me. So that was a mistake, because there were some people who, it took them a long time to get paid, and they were like, what's going on? I thought you said this person was good. And, and that messes up your reputation. And thank God that people are like, you know what, I understand, it's not you, thank God that didn't fall back on me, because it could have. So never do that again. you can vet that, and I have my own project going on. But definitely a lesson there. And then the last lesson, and I wouldn't say this is the last one, but the last one before I really took things to the next level, was a similar situation. I partnered with someone, brought the investors to the deal again, and this person had total control over the rehab, the budget, the cost, the amount, the contractors. They had total control. And all the while, my peers are telling me, like, you don't need anybody to do this real estate thing. Like, you have everything you need to do this yourself. But again, I still didn't have the confidence in myself to do it. But partnered with someone, gave them complete and total control, and then come to find out they lied about the rehab budget, inflated the numbers, said there was no money left in the deal, all of that stuff. And I was left with like, well, there wasn't much that I could do. Yes, we could settle this in court, right? But it was, it's unfortunate. It is what it is. The investors did end up getting paid, so that's a good thing. And I didn't have any money in the deal, so I didn't lose out. But that person didn't hold up their end of the relationship. And so, yeah, the lesson there was, moving forward, I'm seeing everything. Bank accounts, I'm seeing everything. If I get something to do with it, I'm seeing everything. Transparency to me is number one, and if we don't have that, then you're not the person for me to do business with.
Absolutely. There's a guy cleaning this room right now, so
it's all good.
Yeah. I want to talk about your successes though. So okay. Let's talk about some of your home runs. What were some of your best deals?
So the biggest deal is actually coming up. That'll be a $60,000 profit. Well, and then on the realtor side, I didn't even talk about that. So on the realtor side, and it's actually how I met my business partner, who was flipping $500,000 homes, and sold some of those. So those were great successes. And we ended up actually having a conversation. So I would even say that that's a home run, coming in contact. So first of all, going through everything that I've gone through, and then being able to have the conversation with people moving forward that this is exactly what I expect. And this is, knowing what I bring to the table and utilizing that as leverage. And again, realizing that's my niche and my gift, that I'm able to construct deals and put them together, and people seeing value in that. Like, there's legit real value in that, because that's what's the number one reason that people don't get started? Money, right? And like I said, I have more investors than I have deals. So I would say that is a home run, being able to find someone that I can have those tough conversations with up front. But like I said, the biggest deal we're closing on in 2 weeks. So I'm excited for that one. And that'll be fun.
Right.
And like 30 days.
I think you're right. There's a lot of value in just the knowledge and the experience and the connections and the ability to raise capital. And that's one thing I realized is, in the beginning, it might kind of take money to get started, but after that, you make money just with your knowledge. You make money just with like you as a being. And I think that kind of speaks to what you were talking about with knowing your worth and knowing the value that you bring to the table, which is really cool. You made a post that said your purchasing power goes a lot further when you purchase a multifamily. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yep. So I was speaking to first-time home buyers, or home buyers in general. You don't necessarily have to be a first-time home buyer, but I think that back in the day, and this is probably like 10 years ago, 10 years ago and plus, I think it was the thing to, when you made your purchase, you were buying your house. You were buying your condo downtown that you want to be in. You got a great view. You got all the amenities, or you got the house with the big backyard and, in the suburbs, and you were buying that thing that you really loved and that you really desired, that you were like, this is it. I made it. I got what I want. But when the market, act a little funny, or you lost your job or whatever, now you in a position, right? You're in a situation where you got to sell, you got to do a short sale. Hope, you might have foreclosed, like I say, you might have lost your job. Like, there's so many things that could happen to where this dream home, condo, or townhome has now turned into something that's not so favorable. And so I learned early on the power of leverage. So Robert Kiyosaki has a very great book on leverage called Rich Dad. I mean, not Rich Dad. Retire Young, Retire Rich. That's probably one of my.
It's a really good book.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorite real estate investing books, and there's so many people who know nothing about it. To my surprise, everybody knows, the other one. But Retire Young, Retire Rich. Leverage is the name of the game, right? And in purchasing multifamily, obviously you can leverage your tenants, and pretty much that just means. And I speak to buying power because I'm talking about the future. So let's say you have an individual who makes $100,000 and they are approved for a home for $250, and they go out and they buy that home for $250, and they love it. Everything's good. In 2 years they decide, you know what? I want to buy another home, but I want to keep this one and I want to rent it out. I want to have some tenants. Well, when they go to purchase that next home, they're more than likely going to have to sell because now they have to show that they can afford 2 mortgages, right? Take that same situation, right? You have an individual making $100,000. They're approved at $250. They go and buy a 3-unit. And now in 2 years, same situation, you decide you want to go and buy something else. Well, you're able to afford that 3-unit. You don't have to sell it. You're able to afford that 3-unit, and you're able to afford your next purchase because your tenants, the rental income is added to your income as well as the unit that you were living in. It doesn't even have to be anyone in there, but it's something called projected income. Since you've shown that you've been a landlord for the last 2 years, now you have 3 rental incomes that are counting towards your $100,000 income that will allow you to qualify for a second property. And that second property can very well be another 3-unit. So now you got 6 units on the same salary, right? That you were that same $100,000. Nothing changed drastically within your salary. So I think, again, leverage, right? And we talk about buying power because you think about how far your purchase can take you. And so that's what I mean when I talk about that.
I love how just a basic question can just be made into this profound little it's amazing. Really good content. Really good.
Yeah, you know what? When I first learned about it, there was a lender who I put together an event in 2 days. It was at a multi-unit, and I just text a bunch of people yo, just come, we talking about investing, just come out. And he and I had a conversation about it, but he's the one who helped me really understand projected income and things like that. And when I had a lot of millennials in the room, literally we were in a fully rehabbed 2-flat, standing around doing an event. And I had a lender there, attorney, everybody was there just being a resource to people. This was 2 years ago. And this is where I think the house hacking, I don't even think house hacking was a term yet. But again, we were just talking about your buying power, and again, how your purchasing power. But so purchasing power and buying power are 2 different things. I guess you can say purchasing power is pretty much, you're approved at $250, so that's how much you can afford on paper. But it's really actually less. But buying power for me is how far that purchase can take you. So understanding that your very first investment has to be so strategic that if your plan is to be a long-term investor or own real estate long-term, your very first investment has to set you up for that.
Yeah. This is a really good episode. I told you I was going to learn from this. I never even knew.
I see you over there taking notes. Let me know what it's in my invoice.
Man. So these are the last few questions. I don't want to hold you. The first of that last set is, what sets apart successful investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
Well, what you just said, those who give up, right? I think that right there, those who give up, and those who, so it has to be your mindset, right? It has to be the truth that you tell yourself about your situation, because you might be in a messed up situation, right? It might be real messed up. But again, it's a matter of the truth and the beliefs that you tell yourself. So definitely your mindset. Also, I'm trying not to sound so cliche, but it's so true. Like your why, right? Like what's driving you? What's the reason? All of that stuff. And education too. Oh, that's a big one. Because one of my clients who is a bigger pockets fanatic, I mean, somebody gave him Rich Dad Poor Dad in December, and to today, he's probably read like every book that they've mentioned on Bigger Pockets.
I used to have a long list of their books. I haven't read them all, but I had a long list of every book.
Literally, he's created spreadsheets and all of that stuff, right? And literally, we're in April, and he's buying 2 properties right now. Yeah, so education, right? So, investing in yourself, but also doing the work. Like, there's so many people that, yeah, and I hate to be so short with them. It's like, I don't have good credit, fix it. I don't have any money, get some. It's literally like, and not even saying it's gonna be easy by any means, right? But I think there's also work in the preparation. I shared this story before, how I prepared for purchasing my first car. I needed a car. Remember, I was going to work and I was going to school, and I was taking 2 buses and a train to school at one point when I was younger. And it just got to a point I was like, I have to have a car. And wasn't nobody buying me a car. Like, I had to figure it out, And so I was like, oh, I really, really, really want a car. And I went to the car lot. Now, I had just started building my credit because, again, that's something that, again, I had to teach myself how to build good credit. Because if you remember, I asked my mother and she didn't know. So I went to the car lot, and it was 2012. And they were going to give me, first of all, they were going to tell me what they were going to give me. I couldn't pick out what I wanted because I didn't have an established credit yet. So they were going to give me like a 06 Nissan Sentra with like all these miles for like $18,000. And something in my gut just said it's not right. And although I wanted that car so bad, I just want any car. I didn't care. But I was like, you know what? Something in my gut says it's not right. So you guys are going to give me this because I don't have established credit? Okay. All right. Left. For a year, I figured out what I needed to do to build up my credit. I secured your car, secured loans, did what I needed to do. A year later, I went back with my established credit and bought a brand new car and drove it off the lot. And I believe that there is work in the preparation. So if you want to do whatever it is that you say you want to do, if you're really going to do it, you need to figure out what you need to do and then put in the work to get there. And that's all it is that simple, and it's a matter of, are you going to do the work or not? Like I said, my client who read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then all of a sudden it sparked like, oh my God, real estate investing is amazing. He picked up every single book that he could and read it. He didn't have to do it, but he did. And now today he is prepared to go into purchasing properties and doing it. So education is the key. Investing in yourself, and again, doing the work, doing the preparation. No, you may not have good credit today, but if you work on your credit, who knows 6 months or a year from now what that can look like. Maybe you don't have the money today, but if you go out and Uber or get a second or third job or do whatever you got to do, who knows what 6 months to a year will look like.
Absolutely. 100%.
You just got to do it. You just got to do the work. That's it. It's really easy. The formula is easy.
That was one of the things I wanted to mention earlier when we were talking about investing in somebody's deal. And I think that like that's a form of work as well. It's like you have to do something. Like you can't like sit around like hoping it's going to happen for you. Like do something. So make something move.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't just show up with your hand out, unless you got a check in it.
Right. Who is somebody that you look up to and why?
Oh, that's a good question. In real estate or just in general?
Oh, man.
Okay, so I'll answer the question.
I'll let you pick. Yeah, I'll let you pick.
So, that's a great question. Because for a long time, I actually felt like I really didn't have role models, right? Like I would see or hear people say, oh, role model, but I just wasn't really like, And I grew to really have a love for Melody Hobson, who is the president of Ariel Investments, the largest Black-owned investment firm in the country. And, as a Black woman, she started there when she was 24, fresh out of college. And now she is the president. She sits on the board of directors for Starbucks, Estee Lauder, DreamWorks Animation, I think Chase. Don't quote me on that one, but boss, right?
Right.
And as a Black woman, and she is unapologetically Black. She has a TED Talk called Color Brave, right? And she talks about, when we walk into a boardroom, why when we walk into a boardroom, if we see a table full of Black men, we would stop and think, that's strange. But if we walk into a boardroom and see a table full of white men, that's our norm, right? So I love the fact that she challenges like the narrative and diversity in the financial world. Because like I said, when I first started out, I was like financial literacy, like talking about budgeting and credit and stuff like that. So I've definitely looked up to her. And then in regards to real estate, when I first got started, I asked myself, first got started with the whole branding, right? And building this presence online, because my first got started was obviously years ago, right? You can call it whatever you want. I wasn't successful at 19, but I started my own business. And so that's, the first got started. But when I first started building my brand, as a woman in real estate, as a woman that is in real estate, that is more than just a realtor, I asked myself, I said, who's the female Jay Morrison? Like, that's what I asked myself. And then I thought, and really nobody came to mind. And so I was like, okay, well, if she's not out there, then why not become her, right? Why not be a pillar for the community, for Black women, young, old, whatever the case, that are saying that, hey, these are my mistakes. This is what I've done. This is what I can do. And on top of that, I know that I don't know everything. So then I created Flipping in Heels to highlight other women. Some amazing boss women. Thank God for social media. Like, I really mean that, for the connections and Blacker Pockets and like other platforms that highlight Black women in real estate and people who are doing this. So we can have more people who inspire us. So the next person that you do ask that question to, they are able to rattle off names, right? Because they see it, right? And it's real. But to just, end it on a cliche note, everybody inspires me. I follow so many amazing people, like down my timeline. It's literally, it's you, it's so many people. I just had a bunch of women on my virtual summit. So everything that they're doing, I'm definitely being pushed to go harder. So.
Very cool. So with that, where can people find out more about you and everything you have going on?
So I'm Rashauna Scott everywhere. I made it easy for you guys to find me. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, again, branding, keeping it the same across all platforms, as well as Flipping in Heels. Flipping in Heels is on Instagram, and I do have a private Facebook group. But yeah, Rashauna Scott or Flipping in Heels. Inbox me. I do respond to mostly all of the messages. If you are messaging me or anybody, I ask that one, you be patient with us for one, but for two, take the time to really be specific about what it is you're asking. Just saying, I want to get started in real estate. Do you have any advice? That is not a valid question to ask, right? Like if you say, I want to start flipping houses, and what do I need to do, or who do I need to talk to start raising money, or how can I estimate rehab costs, or like specific. I think I said this before. The more specific you are, the better your response. So, yeah, hit me up.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for coming on the show. This is episode 100. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Top Millionaire. If you're interested in joining either of the investment clubs, either for stocks or real estate, email us at membership@capitaltop.com. Check out the store at gumroad.com/Top Capital. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Top Millionaire, signing off.